Hey everyone, welcome back, and if you are new here, welcome. Before we start, thank you. This channel is growing because of you. Every view, every comment, every subscribe, I do not take that for granted. Now, what I am about to show you is something almost nobody is talking about. Let's get into it. On February 28th, 2026, a drone slammed into one of the most luxurious hotels on the planet. The Fairmont on Dubai's Palm Jumeirah, a place where rooms cost thousands of dollars a night, was suddenly on fire. But this was not a freak accident. This was the beginning of something much bigger. Within hours, missiles lit up the sky above a city that had built its entire identity on one promise: safety, stability, a place where nothing bad happens. That promise was broken in a single afternoon. To understand what happened to Dubai, you need to rewind a few hours. To 1:15 a.m. Eastern Time on February 28th, 2026, that is when the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military operation against Iran. The Pentagon called it Operation Epic Fury. Israel called it Operation Roaring Lion. This was not a limited strike like June 2025. This was something the world had not seen in decades. A full-scale campaign targeting the entire Iranian military apparatus. Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from warships. Air-launched missiles fired from 2 carrier strike groups. Strikes hit Tehran, Isfahan, and dozens of other locations across the country. The targets included IRGC command and control centers, air defense systems, missile launch sites, military airfields, and underground nuclear facilities. President Trump announced the operation in an 8-minute video on Truth Social at 2 a.m. He said the goal was to dismantle Iran's military capability and prevent it from ever obtaining nuclear weapons. But the most shocking development came within the first hours. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, Iran's supreme leader for 36 years, was killed in the strikes. Israeli forces had intelligence that senior Iranian leaders were gathered at a compound in Tehran. The timeline of the entire operation was reportedly accelerated because of that information. Within the first 12 hours, hundreds of strikes were carried out. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff later called it the culmination of months, and in some cases years, of planning. Iran's communications grid was knocked out before the first bomb fell. Electronic warfare blocked the country's ability to see, coordinate, or respond effectively. But Iran did respond. And that response is what brought the war to Dubai's doorstep. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued a warning within hours. They promised what they called the heaviest offensive in the history of the Islamic Republic, and they delivered. Iran launched missiles and drones at U.S. military bases across the Middle East. But it did not stop there. The strikes hit 7 countries: the UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, Jordan, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. The IRGC stated it was targeting 27 military bases where American soldiers were deployed. But the reality on the ground looked very different. Missiles and drones struck international airports, residential buildings, hotels, ports, places where ordinary people live and work. This was not precision retaliation against military targets. This was a region-wide barrage that hit civilians in every direction. Iran's foreign ministry later admitted that the military had partially lost control of some units. Those units were operating under old general instructions, firing at pre-programmed targets regardless of what was happening around them. That detail explains a lot about what happened next. Dubai sits roughly 200 kilometers across the Persian Gulf from Iran. It takes a ballistic missile only minutes to cover that distance. On Saturday afternoon, residents in Dubai heard the first explosions. Witnesses reported seeing missiles streaking across the sky. Others saw the flashes of interceptions high above the city's skyscrapers. The UAE's air defense systems activated immediately. The Ministry of Defense later reported that on the first day alone, Iran fired 137 ballistic missiles and 209 drones toward the UAE. Most were intercepted. The defense systems destroyed 132 of the 137 ballistic missiles and 195 of the 209 drones. 5 missiles fell into the sea, but that still left debris, falling fragments, drones that got through. And that is where the damage happened. The most dramatic footage came from Palm Jumeirah, the iconic man-made island, a global symbol of Dubai's ambition and luxury. Videos verified by multiple news outlets showed a Shahed drone diving toward the ground in the Palm Jumeirah district. Moments later, an explosion rocked the Fairmont Hotel, setting part of the building on fire. Thick plumes of smoke rose above the waterfront skyline. The hotel's facade was blackened. Shattered glass covered the streets. A tourist staying at the hotel described hearing an enormous explosion around 6:30 p.m. while eating dinner with his family. He said they ran for cover, then moved to the beach to get away from buildings they feared could collapse. After returning to their room and smelling smoke, the family packed and checked out early. At a nearby beach club, a British tourist captured video of missiles being intercepted directly overhead. He was relaxing by the pool when the interceptions happened above him. Dubai's civil defense brought the fire under control. 4 people were injured and taken to medical facilities. No fatalities were reported at the Palm, but the damage to the image of Palm Jumeirah, the safest luxury playground in the Middle East, was immeasurable. Dubai International Airport is one of the busiest airports on Earth. It serves as the home base for Emirates Airline and handles tens of millions of passengers per year. On February 28th, a concourse at the airport sustained damage. Social media videos showed the interior filled with smoke as airline employees evacuated the building. 4 airport staff were injured. Dubai airports said emergency response teams were immediately deployed and the situation was contained. But the real impact was not the physical damage. It was the shutdown that followed. Dubai airports suspended all flight operations. Emirates grounded every single flight to and from the city. The UAE closed its airspace. The world's most connected city was suddenly cut off. Thousands of passengers were stuck at the airport with no flights available. Airlines handed out hotel vouchers for what could be a very long wait. India's double Olympic medalist PV Sindhu was among those stranded. Her coach had to run from the area closest to the smoke and debris, and the Fairmont and the airport were not the only targets. Late on Saturday, a fire broke out on the facade of the Burj Al Arab, Dubai's most iconic building, the sail-shaped hotel that appears on every postcard. Debris from an aerial interception caused the blaze. Guests were evacuated and the fire was brought under control. No injuries were reported. At Jebel Ali Port, one of the busiest ports in the Middle East, debris from interceptions sparked another fire at one of the berths. Civil defense teams responded immediately. Again, no injuries. But the images told a story that numbers could not. Smoke rising above the Burj Al Arab, flames at one of the world's busiest ports, a city under attack that had never prepared its residents for this reality. Dubai's sister emirate, Abu Dhabi, was hit even harder. A drone strike at Zayed International Airport killed 1 person and injured 7. It was the first fatality in the UAE from the attacks. Debris from intercepted drones damaged buildings in Saadiyat Island, Khalifa City, Bani Yas, and other neighborhoods. A woman and her child were injured by falling debris at Etihad Towers. Abu Dhabi hosts the Al Dhafra Air Base, which is used by U.S. forces. That made it a primary target for Iran's retaliation. Emergency alerts went out on phones across the UAE. Residents were told to seek immediate shelter in the closest secure building and stay away from windows, doors, and open areas. Schools shifted to distance learning. Companies told employees to work from home. The Ministry of Human Resources urged private sector businesses to implement remote working from March 1st through the 3rd. By the end of the second day, the numbers were staggering. The UAE Ministry of Defense reported that, since the attacks began, the country had dealt with 165 ballistic missiles, 2 cruise missiles, and 541 drones. On day 2 alone, forces destroyed 20 ballistic missiles, 2 cruise missiles, and 311 drones. But 21 drones hit civilian targets. 3 people were killed in the UAE, migrant workers from Pakistan, Nepal, and Bangladesh. At least 68 people were injured, including citizens and residents from over 15 different countries. Across the wider Gulf, the damage was even broader. In Bahrain, a Shahed drone slammed into the upper floors of a residential high-rise near a U.S. Navy base. In Kuwait, a drone struck the international airport, injuring several people. In Qatar, 16 people were injured from attacks involving 65 missiles and 12 drones. Saudi Arabia said it repelled what it called a blatant and cowardly attack on its capital and eastern region. Jordan intercepted 13 ballistic missiles and 49 drones. For the first time in history, all 6 Gulf Cooperation Council states were targeted by the same actor within 24 hours. That is a scenario defense analysts had warned about for years, but no one expected it to actually happen. While the Gulf states absorbed Iranian strikes, the devastation inside Iran was far worse. By the end of the first day, the Iranian Red Crescent reported 201 civilians killed and 747 injured. By Monday, estimates rose to approximately 550 dead. The most devastating incident was a strike on a girls' elementary school in the city of Manab in southern Iran. Iranian authorities reported that approximately 170 students were inside when it was hit. Multiple news organizations verified footage from the scene but could not independently confirm the death toll. Regardless of the exact numbers, this was the single deadliest civilian incident of the entire operation. 4 American service members were also killed. 5 were seriously injured. Several others suffered shrapnel wounds and concussions. The immediate fallout for global travel was enormous. At least 14,000 flights were affected. Airspace closed over Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Israel, Bahrain, and the UAE. Flight tracking data showed the skies over these countries completely empty. Roughly 29% of all scheduled flights into the Middle East were canceled. Over 1,500 out of 5,340. Airlines that suspended operations included Emirates, Etihad, Qatar Airways, FlyDubai, Gulf Air, Lufthansa, British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, Air India, and Norwegian. Dubai, normally the world's busiest international airport, went silent. For 3 full days, almost no flights departed or arrived. On the evening of March 2nd, Dubai airports announced a limited resumption. A small number of flights would operate from both DXB and Al Maktoum International. Emirates said it would begin operating limited flights, prioritizing passengers with earlier bookings. But authorities warned, do not go to the airport unless your airline has contacted you directly. This was not a full reopening. It was the first cautious step in what could be a very long recovery. Dubai built its empire on a simple equation: no natural resources of its own, but the safest, most stable, most connected hub in the Middle East. Every skyscraper, every hotel, every free trade zone was built on the assumption that conflict would never reach Dubai's shores, that the Gulf's defense systems and political alliances would keep the city untouchable. February 28th shattered that assumption. The images of smoke above the Burj Al Arab and fire at the Fairmont are now burned into the global consciousness. The 3-day airport shutdown proved that Dubai's connectivity, its most valuable asset, can be turned off overnight. The Dubai and Abu Dhabi stock exchanges closed for days amid the crisis. Markets across the region went into turmoil. Oil prices surged. Bitcoin dropped to roughly 63,000 before partially recovering. The Indian stock market lost over 700 billion rupees in a single session. Dubai attracted over 17 million tourists in 2024. It has become a hub for entrepreneurs, expats, and companies fleeing high taxes. All of them chose Dubai because it was safe. That calculus just changed. This conflict is not over. As of Monday, March 2nd, strikes continue in Iran. Trump has outlined a 4 to 5 week timetable for the campaign. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs called it the beginning of a prolonged operation. Iran's IRGC has vowed the heaviest offensive in its history. The Houthis in Yemen announced they would resume attacks in the Red Sea. Hezbollah launched strikes from Lebanon. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil passes, became a flashpoint. The UAE closed its embassy in Tehran and recalled its ambassador. Several Gulf states reserved the right to respond militarily if Iranian attacks continue. A few things are already clear. Gulf air defense systems performed remarkably well. The UAE intercepted the vast majority of incoming missiles and drones. Without those systems, the destruction in Dubai and Abu Dhabi would have been catastrophic. But no air defense system is perfect. 21 drones got through. Debris from interceptions caused fires and injuries. 3 people died. Dubai's reputation as a safe haven has taken a hit. How big of a hit depends entirely on what happens in the next few weeks. If the conflict ends quickly, Dubai will recover. If strikes continue, the long-term consequences for investment, tourism, and real estate could be severe. The human cost is real, and it is everywhere. In Iran, hundreds of civilians are dead, including children. In the Gulf, migrant workers were killed. In Israel, residential areas were hit. There are no winners in this kind of escalation, and the world is watching. Every tourist, every investor, every company with operations in the Gulf is recalculating risk right now. February 28th, 2026 was supposed to be a normal winter weekend in Dubai. Peak tourist season, beaches full, malls packed, brunches booked. Instead, highways were empty. The sky was clear of aircraft. Residents huddled indoors, checking emergency alerts on their phones. One of the world's most iconic cities learned in a single afternoon what many cities in this region have known for decades. Geography is not a shield, money is not armor, and safety is never guaranteed. This story is still being written. The next chapter depends on decisions being made right now in Washington, Tehran, Jerusalem, and Abu Dhabi. But the chapter that was written on February 28th will not be forgotten. Now, this channel will continue tracking this conflict and its impact on the global economy, markets, and daily life. If the situation escalates, or if a ceasefire happens, the update will be here. But most people will not see that update. They are not subscribed. They will find out after the fact, when the next headline drops and the markets have already moved. If you learned something from this video that you did not know before, hit subscribe. It is free. It takes 1 second. And it means the next time something changes, you hear about it while there is still time to act. See you in the next one.